Well, former President Donald Trump is preparing for his party convention. It's going to happen next week, but he's also doing something interesting. He is distancing himself from some work done on his behalf. Over the weekend, Trump posted on Truth Social, saying that he has nothing to do with Project 2025. Have you heard of this? It's an exhaustive set of policy recommendations put together by the conservative group, the Heritage Foundation, as well as other conservative organizations. It lays out a complete overhaul of the federal government and a consolidation of power for a would-be Republican president. So CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett is joining me now to talk a little bit more about this. I'm so glad you're here because people started asking me about this Project 2025, and then most of the information that I saw popping up was on social media, in memes and stuff like that. So let's just start with the basics, right? What is Project 2025 and what is it not?
So in one sense, Anne-Marie, it's something old and something new. What is the something old part? Well, the Heritage Foundation created a book called Mandate for Leadership in 1980. It was a policy document for then incoming President Ronald Reagan, and a formidable and important one. Reagan often referred to that Mandate for Leadership book as a guide to how he approached both personnel and policy in the early years of the Reagan administration. Essentially, the Heritage Foundation, a think tank which also delves into politics, has put together something like Mandate for Leadership for every incoming administration. So that's the it's old part. What's the new part? The language is new, and the specificity, though not in name for President Trump, but clearly aligning itself very directly with Trumpist agenda. The language in the opening part of this book talks about cultural Marxism taking over America and the entire federal government weaponized against individual Americans. That kind of rhetoric is something you don't find in earlier iterations of Mandate for Leadership. And it is very Trumpian, and the policy recommendations are also Trumpian. Let me give you a couple of examples. Shift all focus of the Department of Homeland Security to border enforcement and deportation. Another example, turning the Environmental Protection Agency not into a federal agency on environmental protection necessarily, but someone who works with small business and states to manage and integrate their environmental policies, much less federal, much more state. Another example, basically firing all civil servants in the federal government and creating patronage loyalists to the incoming president. That's something that President Trump has talked about, and after the Supreme Court ruling, essentially giving the president wide authority. If anything that the president does is an official act, it creates the idea that loyalists for an incoming Trump administration would do everything and anything he said he would do. And if it's an official act, it could be legally defensible. That creates a kind of anxiety about what this new Trump administration would be if it was stocked full of complete loyalists and he had more legal authority than previously imagined to do whatever he wanted to do as long as it was a quote-unquote official act.
So it seems like everyone across the country knows about this except for the former president. This is basically a how-to book for him and who-to book for him, who to hire. Why would he be distancing himself from this?
Because some of those associated with Project 2025 have said some kind of eyebrow-raising things. One of the leaders of Project 2025 last week on Steve Bannon's War Room podcast said, "We are launching a second American revolution." I'll paraphrase here. He said, which will be bloodless if the left allows for it. A second revolution, a revolution against what? The sitting government. And if you do believe the government is run entirely by cultural Marxists and is weaponized against every individual American, I guess it is a revolution against the government. And you're only saying it will be bloodless if those on the left who might protest or resist or somehow try to stop it through democratic means, but there might be blood if they do that? Those kind of things alarm lots and lots of people, not just Democrats, not just liberals, not just progressives. Lots of people in America are like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? A revolution and blood and compliance of the left? So right after that, former President Trump said, I don't know anything about it. That's not true. He knows plenty about it. Many of the people who are most visible in Project 2025 worked in his administration. They are friends with all the other people who are part of a kitchen cabinet or sort of a government waiting for President Trump. So he knows all about this, and he knows what it's built for. He knows why it's been built, but he doesn't want to take the political heat being generated by it just now.
And so what are we hearing from both Democrats and Republicans about this?
Well, this is a welcome respite for Democrats who want something else to talk about other than the constant writhing conversation about whether or not President Biden will be the Democratic nominee or not. We're almost in our second week of that conversation, Anne-Marie, and Democrats, for understandable strategic reasons, are tired of that conversation. They can't seem to find their way out of it, but they have found a kind of thing elsewhere to direct some of their attention, which is to Project 2025. And if the conversation about the future of President Biden had already been resolved, this would be a main topic because it would be something Democrats would focus attention on. They're only halfway able to do that now because of the ongoing drama around whether or not President Biden will be the party's nominee.
All right, Major Garrett, always great talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks.